This in fact is a world's first. For the first time ever, we've got two guests featuring on the Sales Confidence podcast, and I'm really excited to today's conversation. Both have stellar pedigrees in terms of building sales organizations, building growth businesses, and so we're looking to delve deeper. If you're listening to the Sales Confidence podcast for the first time, our vision is to build the world's most valuable B2B sales community, and we care about helping salespeople and sales leaders at each stage of their career with their mindset and well-being. And you can access our content, upskilling and advice through our memberships and events. So to begin with, we've got Sam, who is the CRO of Apprentify, which is the UK's leading provider of sales apprentices, but also apprentices for many functions within the business, and also covers a group of other companies that we will go into as we learn more about Sam's experience. And then we've got Glenn, who is a multi-time founder and also currently the founder of a company called Kaizan. And we're going to be learning more about the impact his business and his experience has on helping customer success, account management teams upsell and grow their functions. So just to kick things off, to break the ice a little bit, I'll start with you, Glenn. What's typically the first thing you think of when you wake up in the morning?
Oh, opening question. Well,
this can go so many ways.
I have two small children, right? So we actually, and I should say, the correct answer is them.
You should say this is recorded.
It's not but probably the reality is, the first thing I think about is the business. Open my phone, check the Slack messages, check the emails, and make some notes of what we've got to do for that. And then I'll start thinking about the children and what we're, and are they in a good place? And then I'm off to work. So yeah, it's definitely immediately can be the business.
And do you, when you say off to work, are you home office or do you?
A bit of both at the minute. So we're quite early stage. So we're keeping the costs down by not being in the office as much as we will be. But yeah, home office probably 2 days a week, and then the rest of the time I'm going to be in London.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to learning more about the business. To begin with, we kind of want to get into the insights of you as an individual and your experiences in sales. But Sam, what about you? Same question. What do you typically think of first thing in the morning?
Well, I'm not going to tell you the first thing I think about. Kids-wise, I'm usually out of the house by the time they wake up anyway. So first thing I'm thinking, I do check my emails, see if anything's come in the evening before or overnight. Check my socials. I'll be honest, still do that. Check LinkedIn. Take a couple of minutes to wake up. I'm usually then at the gym, and then planning my travel to one of our offices. So head office is in Cheshire. We've obviously got the office here in London, Birmingham, and I occasionally work from home as well. So it's a case of, right, what is the plan today? Yeah. And then I'll get a text about how bad the kids have been that morning and a stressy.
Aren't you lucky getting out of the house?
Exactly. But then I take over the weekends. So
okay, good.
It's a good partnership.
No, good balance. The naturally kind of the sales confidence podcast is focused on sales. I just wondered, like, from both of you, what was your very first experience of sales, like an interaction or your own experience, Glenn?
Yeah, sure. So I finished university and went travelling with no idea what I wanted to do. I knew it would be something to do with carving my own way without really understanding what like being a founder was. But so I went off travelling, and then while I was away, came up with a list of things. As the money started to run out, well, I'm going home soon. I need to start thinking about what to do. So I started to come up with a list of things that I liked and could see myself in. And one of them was media. I thought, I can just imagine, TV and magazines, quite a cool industry. Yeah. So I came back and thought, well, let's jump into that. And one of the first interviews I went for was a company called Dennis Publishing. So it's super unique business, got a very unique founder in Felix Dennis. Yeah. So very fortunate. Got back from traveling, got a job at Dennis Publishing, and they basically say to you, right, okay, well, here's a bunch of magazines. You've got to go and sell the ad space in them. And so my first experience of selling was at Dennis Publishing. And it was such an advantage, if I look back on my career now, because it was such a great sales culture. And you had a 3-month induction and you had an on-site sales coach. So you'd walk in, and on the very first day, you were learning the basics of selling. And then as that goes on, they start to give you sort of more responsibility. And it happened to that my first seat was right next to the sales director. There's like 120 salespeople on the floor. And I had to sit right next to the guy who was running the whole thing. So, as a 23-year-old coming, fresh into this, it was a bit nerve-wracking. But Dennis Publishing just set a base of the basics and how to do it well. And I always look back now on that culture and what they did and how I can sort of apply that into the organisations that I've sort of been involved in building. So that was my first experience, and it was a positive one. It wasn't good products, good assets to sell, good culture, great team, great training. So it was very positive.
Very interesting. That's not having what I've read. That wouldn't be the perception of what I would hear. So actually some quite good insight into that type of culture back then. Interesting. And what about you, Sam?
So my first, I had the shock post-university. So sportsman at Loughborough Uni, done the graduation, tick, and then you wake up the next day, you're finished, and you think, what am I going to do? Literally. Not a doctor, not a dentist, not an accountant, not the skills to go into a proper profession in terms of the binary certification and stuff like that. So for me, it's about competition, soft skills, and how can I make money through being the best in the industry. So I literally called, or I think I put an application into a business at the time called Pareto Law. I got a call straight back, and they invited me to an assessment day the following day. So within 2 or 3 days, I was at an assessment day. I borrowed my dad's suit. I borrowed one of his books, which was literally the 1 Minute Salesman. I read it on the way down. Had the worst assessment that you can ever imagine, but was selected. And luckily I was selected to join Pareto and join their Leeds office that was just opening.
Cool.
So I'll be honest, I hadn't thought about anything other than sport and drink pretty much during university and having a good time. And then that switched totally the day I finished. And I had to get serious about getting a job, and it was sales all the way.
To be fair, I went through Pareto Law. That's how I got my first role. As you know, we work with Venatrix that also run assessment days, and without a doubt, like the idea that you can be one moment in like a complete loss, and you can walk into this room of pure potential and then find yourself in your first role that sets you up for your whole career. I still think it's magic. I still think it's the best model from a sales career starting point.
Yeah, and so I grew that office, got given the opportunity to invest, got a Prince's Trust loan to invest in the business. We grew it with my still current boss, Johnny, and a guy called Andy to 30-40 million. It's a shame to see what's happening there now in terms of layoffs and performance and things like that, but there's new ways of doing things now, which is what we're doing at Apprentify, what Venatrix are doing as well. I keep calling them Venatrix.
No, you've got Venatrix now. You've got it now,
I've got it now, yeah. That day of filming was an absolute nightmare.
You're in.
Yeah, exactly. So that concept about emerging talent, hungry, motivated, tenacious, with the right training, the right mentoring, the right coaching, wins every time.
So do you think that's a philosophy when you think about advising companies on building sales teams? Tell us a bit about how Apprentify supports sales teams building and growing, and also just your general philosophy from what you've experienced building businesses and sales teams as well.
Okay, so there's a few questions in there. My first thing would be just to park the Apprentify bit, because we're a group of companies. There's four or five companies now in group, about 150 of us. So we're involved in ultimately training people up through mainly government-funded solutions, which have often been seen as sub-quality, sub-level, but actually they're not. Okay, so we give companies access to structured formal training through various means through the group companies. But taking the Apprentify thing away, for me, you cannot beat culture. You can't beat the quantity plus quality still approach to sales. And my thing is always do what Alex Ferguson did. That season where he's getting knocked by Alan Hansen. A lot of people watching this will be too young, but create your own people. Grow your own people through an academy, because they act like you, they talk like you, they're passionate about the business, they're culturally right, and ultimately you teach them how to do it, and they will do exactly what you want them to do. The challenges of taking experience. If you find a nugget, and I listened to a podcast earlier about this, if you find a nugget, great in terms of an experienced salesperson, but otherwise I would take a number of inexperienced salespeople, based on culture, based on cultural fit, hunger, drive, dynamism, ambition, stuff like that, and mould them up into the future superstars. That's how I've always grown my businesses. And when I'm in, because I think where this is coming in, Glenn being here, I've embarked now on an investment journey, so I'm investing in businesses as well, ones that are related to sales and ones that I really rate. I'll be advising them also to do exactly the same thing. And in terms of ROI, what you pay an apprentice or a graduate or a junior level person in terms of experience, take 3 or 4 of them.
It's amazing.
That's the concept.
It's amazing how quickly the young mind is malleable, to learn. Because the challenge is, obviously, once you've had a few knockbacks and you're a bit more experienced, you're less open-minded, you're less open to coaching. You think you know the way. I think even with sales professionals, particularly individual contributors, is that there is that arrogance sometimes, if I've smashed my target for a few years, I know what I'm doing, and leave me to it.
If you find a nugget, awesome. In terms of black book, if they can continue that black book, there's no covenants, things like that, or no covenant issues, amazing. But generally, in my experience, they're tough people to. And straight away, it's like, I keep using sports analogies because of my background. If you, who's a recent Mason Mount at Man U, obviously he's quite a big signing. Expectations are high and you're under the cosh immediately. Whereas if you look at these academy players coming through, they get a bit more time, a bit more nurturing. So that's how I'd grow a business and we are growing now to 150 in Apprentify group through that model.
That's amazing.
In all areas. Yeah.
Amazing. And what about you, Glenn, in terms of your track record of building out teams and also businesses? And then I'll ask you guys about your connection after that.
Sure. So couldn't agree more with what Sam said there. So again, why was Dennis Publishing so successful? It's because they had a culture of sales, training and development. So yes, you had great products to sell, but the way they found talent and then onboarded them, and then you had a continuous development program from the sales managers through to the sales directors. It just embedded that culture of continuous improvement, which was, just reaped the benefits. So they're not then having to look for, find the next talent, hire them, fingers crossed they're going to be good. No, they've got a way of finding the right people early who are young with a great attitude, and then having a culture internally that molds them. And the sort of the outsized returns you can get from building a business like that is significant. So my experience after sort of Dennis Publishing was then, internet advertising was starting to explode, and it was just super early, even just by Facebook was founded around this time. So quickly sort of embarked on an entrepreneurial journey where we were building technology for brands and for agencies and for advertisers, and then so quickly had to build sales teams to sell whatever the services or the tech that we were selling. And so number one is the attitude. It's the most important thing is, have they got the right attitude? Have they got a growth mindset? Are they ambitious? Obviously in sales, are they amenable to people like them? It's a very important part. So number one is the attitude good. Second is then the competencies they've got. So what is it about our business and our product what competencies does a salesperson need to have to succeed here? Are they a problem solver? Are they much more around the consultative sale? What are the competencies required for what we're trying to build? And then you can start to interview around those competencies. Give me examples around where you've sort of demonstrated that. And then from there, you get a very good understanding of, this is the right person for us, because you've gone through the experience they've got. Salespeople are great at selling, right? So if you say to them, why are you great at selling? They'll come up with some lovely stories, what they've done. Tell me specifically about a particular example where this particular thing was demonstrated. And you can really whittle then down the right talent. And then you can bring them in. And then if you bring them in and you have a culture of being very transparent, being very direct, and saying we're here to grow and develop you, you end up in a good scenario. You've got to obviously fire quickly as well when the talent's not what it wants to be.
Yeah, we've had this discussion before, James, around making quick decisions, not just for that person, not just for the business, but also for the other people in the business that see that underperformer. Making quick decisions is key. But I think as leaders, as owners, it's about economies of scale as well. It's your time as leaders. It's creating a very simple way of growing a business that's replicable, scalable, it's growth mindset. So you are spending the same amount of time potentially with 10 new starters at a junior level who don't have many life problems, let's be honest, outside of the usual stuff, versus potentially taking on 10 or 5 experienced people, all with their potential problems and different ways of doing things, and different ways they've been managed and different CRM systems they've used. So for me, it's economies of scale. It's growing quickly and making it as easy as possible for you as leaders to grow the business.
I mean, there's nothing more harmful than not responding to a salesperson or an account manager that's not performing where they need to. Everyone knows it. And if you enable it and don't move on it, it just festers in an organisation. It's a terrible thing. So having a culture which talks about this is what we need to achieve, these are the objectives, and if you're achieving it or not achieving it, it's talked about frankly, versus we know this guy's failing, but management's not doing anything about it. Terrible for expectation setting.
Totally agree. It's not a good look at all, is
not
it?
Good.
Is the downfall of certain sales cultures where they don't grasp that quick enough and take action. Okay, thank you for sharing. So what's the connection between each other and how we ended up here today?
So so basically, randomly, a friend of mine from university, who still good friends with, is also a friend of Sam's from back in the day at school. So we were introduced, many years ago, and obviously hit it off because of our backgrounds.
Definitely not in a business environment.
Definitely not in a business environment.
That's where you grow relationships.
Definitely.
That's true.
But obviously hit it off because of our backgrounds and our backstories, and sort of we're aligned around what we're building in our businesses. So yeah, it was through a mutual friend, and then from then and when I started to build Kaizan, Sam, kind enough to angel invest as well into the business.
So what is Kaizan?
Kaizan is an AI for client service teams and organizations to help with the increase of retention and upselling of clients. So over the last 5 to 8 years, you've had a lot of technology, in particular AI, built for sales teams, in particular sales teams to go and say, how do I go and find customers? How do I then do good sales calls, and how do I optimize the pipeline? Obviously, it's a world I know pretty well. But in my experience of building companies, that's only a slither of your total revenue. The real revenue is then how do you protect the revenue you've generated, and how do you expand that client? And this was basically a black box. In B2B SaaS companies, they might use a CS platform to look at how people use their product. But in professional services, there's nothing to look at because it's down to your account management team, your client service team, your client success team to manage whatever they've sold, and then to upsell, cross-sell, and manage the client journey. And it's all very basic. It's just using lots of calls and emails and making sure the client's happy. So using spreadsheets and some notes and a CRM. And what we realized was, post-COVID, most relationships managed through digital channels. Language models and what you can do with AI now, just plug all of that conversation with clients into an AI, and it will start to extract all the embedded intelligence, make recommendations, saying what you need to do for every single client to grow and expand them. So yeah, Kaizan is an AI for professional service companies to basically help with the retention and growth of their businesses. And I think naturally, we also sort of embed into sales teams as well, because sales and CS operate quite closely, but we're mostly focused on the expansion of the client journey.
Great. And where are you at as a business, and what's the ambition?
Yeah, so we're at closed beta. We're sort of 2 years into the journey. Doing pretty well. We've got a bunch of sort of over 30 customers using the beta product. We should be at around 50 customers by the end of the year. We'll come out of closed beta end of Q1. We'll raise a seed round, and then from there it will be just double down on technology and product and sales and marketing to sort of try and ring fence this opportunity for ourselves.
And how does this compare to your other business? You mentioned that you've had and built other companies.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so the other two were we basically worked with brands and advertisers to help with marketing. So we built a technology for like programmatic advertising and real-time advertising and personalized advertising. So we built technology and took it into agencies and took it into brands. And in doing that, you needed to build these big sales teams, across New York and London and Singapore and Australia, and then sales and support teams to manage it. So we were basically working with brands and agencies and building client-facing teams in the journey, in the process. And in doing that, I was like, there's just so much opportunity here. It's to basically apply AI and augment these teams to be more efficient. The best people were the ones that you're sitting on their shoulder and you're guiding them, and we could do this and we could do that, and you're man marking them. And well, actually, how do you start to, so what's the future look like? Well, it looks like AI co-pilots. Now, naturally, that's now the big topic, and everyone's sort of on that journey. But so yeah, that's sort of how the idea came about. Having built these sales and these client service teams, and thinking the future will be AI augmented, and that's what we're building.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Sam, for you right now, what are we, like 4 months at the end of 2023? You're responsible for a number of businesses. Can you just give us some insight into your world in terms of like where's your focus in terms of growth and what matters to you?
So for me, it's revenue, sustainable revenue, and that's obviously attached to growth of the teams, attached to cultural stuff, etc. So it's running the number within those businesses and ultimately the group number at board level. So our financial year actually is, and this is the interesting thing about Apprentify, we're in line with the academic year, because ultimately we are like a university or a school in the fact we're delivering government funded training to individuals who are either starting their careers or they're in a business already. Okay, so our financial year started a month and a half ago.
Right, so you're into the new year.
Yeah, exactly, so into the new year. So just to give and again, I'm always conscious, I don't want to evangelise too much about my business in these
cool.
in these situations.
We want to learn more.
But if you give me sort of 1 minute, so let's focus on Apprentify, who are ultimately the gold partners of Sales Confidence. So we ultimately deliver government-funded training solutions, mentoring, coaching solutions to companies, which the apprenticeship levy funds ultimately. So it sounds weird, and so many companies don't understand that there's access to funding, but there is. So ultimately, any company with a salary bill over 3 million in England is taxed at 0.5% of that amount, and that goes into the apprenticeship levy pot that any company can access. Whether you're a one-man band, and I hate that term, but sorry, it's the best term to use, through to Google, Facebook, one of those companies which we actually work with, any company has access to that apprenticeship levy funding. And that funding we draw down on behalf of our clients to deliver training within sales, which is where we partner, specifically technical sales, within data, within software, within business analysis, and ultimately within marketing as well. So we deliver 15 programs, which by the way are world class. They're Ofsted regulated. We're Ofsted outstanding. That puts us in the top 1.6% of providers in our space. And we're delivering this training to people. All of our people are on apprenticeships. And we're delivering it at the apprenticeship levy's cost, not the company's cost. And if you pay into the levy as a business, you recoup that money at 100%. We just draw down the funding on those companies' behalves. If you don't pay into the levy, so if you are that micro business, it's 95% funded. And there's other employment benefits around national insurance savings, cash bonuses, etc., etc. So about 70%, I shouldn't give this because I think it's one of the secrets to our growth, but 70%, 60-70%, it sort of fluctuates monthly, is training existing staff in businesses. Okay, 25 to 35% monthly is injecting new talent into businesses and putting them on apprenticeships, like I was when I was that 21-year-old, like you were when you were that 21-year-old. So the Venetrix model, amazing model. We do something very similar, but just the training's slightly different, the mechanics are slightly different, and I think probably the apprenticeship thing gives us access to maybe a more diverse pool of individuals. So it's 16-year-olds through to graduates, through to individuals who have also got some experience within a business already. So that's my 1 minute 30 overview.
Perfect. And what are you most excited about in this new financial year for the company?
Look, so many opportunities for us. We're BGF backed, so we're private equity backed. We're on a buy and build journey. So we acquired a business called Juice literally in the last few months, which you know about. So we're looking for other companies to target to grow our business, but ultimately our organic growth is grown through what I believe in, which is hungry, motivated, talented, inexperienced people that we train up. So we had 58% growth last year in a market that is very tough. We know in sales in particular, a lot of tech companies are laying people off. Indeed. We had 58% growth. This year's budget is 75% growth at least, and this first month and a half looks like we're going to absolutely smash that. So
Exciting.
In a way, it being tough out there is in a way good for us as a business, because companies want to find innovative ways to train the people up, retain them and coach them, but not necessarily have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So we've got that option.
I mean, which is like a no-brainer. Like, we talk about it all the time.
We use that, mate, all the time. That no-brainer. It's a total no-brainer. It's not right for every company.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, there's some companies, you know, the household names who are smashing it through the apprenticeship way of doing things, including us.
Yeah, definitely. We would get more of that word out.
The worst word is apprenticeship and apprentice. They are the worst words or descriptions for what we're actually doing, because they give this vision of and look, a lot of my family are in the space, so I'm not trying to knock these spaces, but you know, beauticians and mechanics and decorators and the manual stuff, where there's this vision that you're underpaid, it's a kickstart type program, and they go to college, the local college a day a week. That is totally the opposite of the reality in terms of what we're delivering.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, very detailed, robust programs of learning, you know, that individuals get to go through, well supported with experts. I mean, like, yeah, as you know, I love it. We get lots of different listeners, you know, from like the new into sales, individual contributors, sales leaders. So just getting a bit tactical on sales, Glenn. What is there a book that you reference or has inspired you, that you picked up and found useful?
Good question. So I think the one I'd always come back to, and there's two actually. I think the Challenger Sale, I think, is I often share, if there's a particular individuals in sales and CS teams that I know are, you know, growth mindset and always reading, always looking to improve, the Challenger Sale I'll always give them. It's a brilliant way of the best salespeople can live inside the mind of a buyer. They understand everything around what their challenges are, what the friction points are going to be. Once that call is over, what are they going to go and say internally? And then the Challenger Sale basically says, well, puts them to really think through, are they doing a good enough job in their role as a buyer? And then challenges that. And then obviously your solution is a way then that could sort of unlock opportunity for the buyer. So the Challenger Sale really frames that. And then Never Split the Difference by Voss is a brilliant book for how to handle conversations, which is applicable to in a sales conversation or speaking to the wife on a Friday. What are we going to do?
Yeah. So the takeaway.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, those two books I think always stand out.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Sam.
I knew you were going to ask me that. I'm not much of a
Could be audio.
I'm not much of a reader. So there's a book at the moment I've just read parts of, because my attention and concentration span is pretty short. But there's a book, Transformational Selling. It's written by Bryn Thompson, Stephen Lowndes. I've worked with both great guys, and they've got some great ideas around how you take things into solution rather than just being a supplier. So how do you take things to partnership? So that's a good book, I think. I've not read many of them since the 1 Minute Salesperson when I was 21. Wow. Because I messed up that assessment down the back of it. So my thing has always been, and I don't know if it's the sports thing or just how, I think just work harder than everyone else. I think just work harder, up earlier. Don't want to be that cheesy CEO that's in the gym at 5, etc. But work ethic is everything. Humility, and just learn not necessarily from books, but people around you and your bosses, because they want you to be successful. Yeah,
this is it. I mean, it is an odd one now. I think if I think about the impact of like social media, success seems instant these days, right? Because literally in your feed, image, video after image just shows you like of the final outcome. And I wonder if like this new generation is missing those fundamentals of like, it requires effort. It requires sweat. There is going to be hardships. It is not going to be easy for you to achieve what you want to achieve. Any thoughts on that?
I totally agree. I think it's going to swing back actually next few years, because I speak to a lot of like friends of mine who like run companies, and they're all talking about this issue, which is, you know, especially post-COVID, when they're hiring a younger generation, that everything's expected. I will work where I want to work. I'll work the hours I want to work. I'll expect a big salary. And and it's a challenge, and it's sort of like this sort of expectation they've got on the things that can be handed to them. And I think that the individuals who actually are working harder, making more of an effort to develop within themselves within the business, probably be more face to face and more collaborative, and to grow themselves, will then start to do better. And I think you might see this swing back actually around. We had the work-life balance conversation and moving away from hustle culture. And I actually think that people are going to realise it will start to swing back. And to your point around working hard, I saw an interview of Michael Phelps, the best Olympian of all time. He said, I trained every single day. I was Christmas Day, birthday, New Year's Day. My competitors didn't, and I knew I had an advantage on them because Christmas Day I was in the pool. So that,
I think what can you control? Variables in every situation in life and business. What variables can you control? It's your knowledge, it's your work ethic, it's things like that you can control. 80% of it to give yourself the chance to nail the rest of that 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally agree.
Can I just go back to that point? Because I feel a little bit differently about this. So from my point of view, I feel that I had an easy journey, weirdly. The reason was Blair Britain, economy was booming. There was flats going up left, right and centre. I mean, for me personally, one of my things is property, and I got my first mortgage literally at 19. Wow. And it was literally one of those Northern Rock. That's not an accomplishment back then. It would be now, but it was literally, I'm not being cheesy, one of those Northern Rock 5%. And I'm not sure if I should say it on camera, but the salary slip I had, bearing in mind I was at Loughborough, was not a proper salary slip. But I managed to save up for a 5% deposit. I bought a 2 up, 2 down, and rented it out. Could you do that now? Absolutely, you couldn't. Okay, so I feel I was lucky to go through that Blair Britain thing, the boom, etc., etc., etc. On your point on the emerging talent coming through, there has always been a gap. There's always been a gap, hence the assessment days that I've always run and Apprentify does as well. There's always been that gap between the good and the not so good, and that's always been mainly based on attitude. It's just the same now, though. And by the way, I think the talent coming through now, who are less binge boozy, who've been through a really tough time during COVID, finishing uni and going to uni, remotely, shocking times. They're actually coming out and so much better at the tech. They're actually so much more grounded, in my opinion, if you find the good ones. And it's about finding the good ones, which spinning it back, companies like Apprentify are doing. So what you said, I agree totally, but it's always been the same in terms of emerging talent. Those that think they're owed something and those that don't.
Yeah,
it's the same now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Just as I said at the beginning of this conversation,
sounds derogatory. We sounded like we've been there. Okay, so we don't want to be derogatory.
But
looking down on youth.
But it's a perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
But do you know what? It's actually, this is the one thing. Having 2 guests, I'm just in real time, not having done this before. Like just that bouncing off perspective. Like it's actually it's good to hear. So thanks for sharing. Where do you think? We're part of our mission is inspiring confidence in people and helping them reach their potential. What's your advice, Sam, to people that want to be more confident, want to unlock their confidence?
Okay, so I wish I'd have maybe prepped a little bit more for that question.
Well, we can come back to it. Have you got an answer?
Look, I really believe, and it's difficult saying this when looking at the screen. You can see my middle-aged spread, but I do believe that physical health is important in life. I believe it's related to mental health, and we're going through a really tough time post-COVID and the way things are out there in terms of mental health and things like that. I believe that eating the right things, not drinking too much, which was my generation, and looking after yourself is key. The work-life balance we mentioned, I think that is important. The hybrid thing is important for this generation coming through. But be fit, be on it, be hungry. That's how to be confident, in my opinion. Because if you're confident in yourself, that will come through at work as well. I believe.
Absolutely, Glenn.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because a lot of the times it's down to the individual. But I think what the common thing I've definitely seen is celebrating the wins and positive reinforcement. Humans, at the end of the day, they're going to like positivity thrown their way, being listened to, being understood, and then being told they're doing a good job. So if if you're doing that, and you're saying this is well done here, well done there, that's celebrated as an individual and then across the organisation, that just engenders confidence in the individual. So I think just positive reinforcement and celebrating the wins is the basics basically.
But to expand on that, you also need to understand as a we're talking about junior salespeople here, because this is sales confidence. That junior salesperson needs to know in no uncertain terms what their KPIs and targets are, because what you'll find is that the vast majority of underperformance is because that individual does not actually understand their targets, let alone how to hit the targets. I don't know if you see this, James, but you know, I hear it a lot. I don't know what my targets are. How do I get paid on that? How do I hit that meetings booked, meetings attended, that revenue target?
But that goes back to, you know, being able to celebrate the small milestones and small wins. Like, because I think one of the things, which is the challenge, which makes sales difficult, is that there's always more. There's always a gap. You know, you hit your target, you can always overachieve your target. There's always more to give, and sometimes like that can knock you back because you're like, I'm not good enough, I'm not where I want to be, I'm not achieving. So you do need to be able to enjoy those small wins. Those small wins being the fact that you've dialed 50 dials in the morning, no one's picked up, someone has finally got on the phone with you and just had a conversation with you. Yeah. That's a small win to celebrate for that moment, for that day, so you can carry through for the rest of the day. And obviously, as you become more capable and you get those, you build up those wins, you build up competency as well. And I think, you know, some perception of sales as a profession is that, you know, salespeople are arrogant. There's all the stereotypes, over speaking, not listening. But actually, the really like class salespeople are competent in what they do. They're experts in their field. They understand their product. They understand their buyer. They understand how to communicate. So yeah,
you hit a good one there. Listen.
Yeah.
Don't talk, because the worst salespeople talk too much. My background has never been to talk a lot. I'm known for it socially. I'm known for it within my family, within the workplace. I don't actually talk a lot unless I have to. I'm always taking things in and processing, and then delivering something that's hopefully based on what I've heard.
Absolutely.
So I think the 2 ears, 1 mouth thing is an old school thing that still continues.
Totally agree. And on that, one of the other things I think happens. I was a talker as the lamb, but the
No, you're a good talker.
cheers. But the piece was around. Sometimes you also, as a new salesperson, you get very enthusiastic about like your offering and your product, and you kind of throw up on the buyer, and that I see continuously.
Yeah, I love that point, because for me it's turn on phrase, takeaway phrase. It's that, you know, you're talking about tactical stuff, and what I want my managers to teach our guys is that take it away, because, you know, a lot of people will cold call us and they'll tell you how they can change your world. There's nothing more powerful than saying, I actually don't know if we can.
Yeah.
So a purpose of actually having this conversation is to understand how we can add value to your business, maybe like we have done with competitors, but I can't say that we can. That's the purpose of engaging with you.
Yeah.
I think if you take something away from someone, like your last cars, for example, well, you're London boys, aren't you? So I don't know if you've got a car, but your last car, you will usually put the signature on the piece of paper or put the money down when someone else is looking at it. It's human nature. So I think a powerful way of selling is taking it away, the takeaway phrase from that prospect.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
this all
spewing.
comes, but this all comes with great training though. So if someone from day one has been taught, okay, well, you know, let's do qualification, understanding what about the prospect, but not too much, because you're going to piss them off after a while. So just enough, and then the questioning. And then the challenger sale of really getting under, like, tell me more about that and why is that a problem? But tell me more about why that is a problem. And then at certain points, you can use that and take it away. You go, well, actually, what we're doing here actually is more suited to this type of organisation. And oh no, we're like that as well. Okay, well, you know, you didn't actually respond that way. So you can use from definition, then the understanding their problems. Then you can start to say, actually, are we going to be the right for you here? And then you can start to go into the detail around what the features are or the services that works. But just good training. So you're not just spewing constantly a bunch of features in front of someone, like the hairdryer of features.
Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation. I've loved having you both on. Have you just got a final thought? You know, people have listened through this whole conversation, or something that you may have not mentioned that you would like to share. What's your parting thought or comment? Who wants to take it first?
I think that's one for you to start.
Yeah, I'll start. I think if we're talking, if any listener is someone just starting in their career, it is just the basis of what we said. It is, you know, just work as hard as possible, manage your mindset, and also challenge yourself. I wish I'd aimed bigger earlier, and I think that would, I'd impart that on people just starting their careers. And then people building organizations, especially sales organizations, is to really think, are we doing a good enough job in building a great training and development culture? Because if we do that, it's inevitable we're going to win.
Good advice.
Yeah. So twofold. I think if you are a salesperson, just making sure you're pushing with your manager leader that, what are my targets? What do I need to hit to get to the next level? So how do I earn the money and get the recognition that I should do? So clear my targets up, please. And if I hit these targets by these milestones, what do I get? Okay, because I still believe 80% plus of sellers don't actually know that. Okay, so push your leaders to get that, because also the leaders will respect that, and they'll think, okay, this individual is hungry, is serious, and wants it. In terms of to leaders, I would just say, make sure that those targets are clear. Okay, and make sure that everyone has the same targets and is managed in the same way, in a binary target related way. Because that old school, when we came through, of beers with the boss and not as much CRM traction and call monitoring and things like that, a lot of it was around personality fitting, career progression. Now it isn't. Okay, so make sure that everyone is on the same targets and you manage against those targets, not just who you like.
Great.
Okay, that's the tip for me.
Good advice. Well, thanks very much for your time and joining us on the Sales Confidence Podcast, and look forward to checking back in and getting people involved in learning more at some of the networking events that are coming up. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.